This morning I came at 9:30 and I had occasion to benefit of listening to Richard. He was giving a perspective which was altogether new in the Indian context. He was more on the financial prudence and the discipline in the process of project appraisal and the financial discipline, which possibly has been lost track of conveniently or otherwise in India. And I believe if we look at the project appraisal exercise, where have we gone wrong? I shared some of the statistics which are the empirical statistics, 10 power projects, what is the cost and time overrun, what has gone wrong in those projects. Since 2006-07, the private investment in the power sector. What was the risk scenario at that point of time in terms of PPAs or FSAs or the counterparty risk or the operational risk? That has not changed. If the assessment of that at 2007, 8 or 9 or 10 when the appraisal was undertaken, and if that assessment would have been quantified, analyzed, quantified and sought to be mitigated during the appraisal stage, possibly we would have not have that bad scenario in terms of the stress assets or the NP assets. Possibly we ignored those risks and we thought that maybe the environment, maybe the macroeconomic factors would take care of them. Power sector is a utility sector, is a public utility sector, and possibly it would be too difficult for the government to ignore and the things would fall in place on their own. Unfortunately, the scenario turned out to be different and we are in the mess as we are today. So that's one thing, and possibly first lesson is that we have to realize that hard reality today, and when we do the project appraisal we have to factor in these risks in the project appraisal, and these are not too difficult to understand, analyze and factor into the project appraisal. That may be a subject matter of a detailed discussions. The problem can be in terms of uncertainties. There could be uncertainties which might crop up in the implementation period, post-implementation period, and you might got unaware. For example, the issue related to the coal blocks. Suddenly you had the linkages, you had the coal blocks and the problem cropped in, and today you do not know what happens to them. You had the forex currency, the exchange volatility, and you do not know how does it impact your project. Those are the issues, yes. If these affect the project, those are the abnormalities. But other kind of the risk which are in the power sector or the infrastructure is possibly something which we need to look into, analyze and factor in the project appraisal. That's where possibly we as institutions have failed. And one of the reasons could be that the funding in India, I often say it's not the project finance, it's the funding, it's a lending, sanction and the disbursement. I might be too critical, but that's my assessment of 20-25 year association with the industrial financing or infrastructure financing. Our lending is a promoter-based lending. We look at the promoter, we make up our mind, and possibly then the project appraisal or the agenda preparation exercise starts. The risk analysis, the assessment and mitigation is possibly the lip service it gets than what it deserves. This aspect is something which needs to be looked into. For example, we have the linkage, coal linkage in the power sector, and some of the project got 100% coal linkage. When we did the appraisal, we assumed that the 100% coal they will get, and they would get at the price at the coal linkage price would be. Knowing it very well, the position on the availability of the coal, the volatility in the availability and the prices of the alternative sources of supply, we still appraise the project as if it will be 100% coal linkage and at the coal linkage price. What in reality in reality we see is what? It's a 60% availability of the total requirement. Where do we get 40% requirement? We see the projects now where there are alternatives, and I would say flimsy argument given, we will import, the coal will be available on the through the open auction. The coal can be imported. A project in the middle of India is going to import project through the Maharashtra route, knowing very well that the port doesn't have the capacity, there is no transport logistic available. We are appraising the project. we are sanctioning the loan. What would be the final outcome? It is not too difficult to fathom. So to me, the focus has to shift from the promoter to the project. And the promoter in that perspective is very important aspect of the project as well. The third thing that we need to look into is the consortium funding. The consortium approach that we follow is the approach in letter and spirit what it ought to be, possibly not. There is a leader who appraised the project, and then for the rest of the members of that consortium either take it or leave it. There is no participation in terms of the quality of the appraisal, the quality of the assessment of the participating institution. Possibly that need to change. I remember long back in the middle of 80s and 90s, there was an approach that the consortium member would sit together, take an overall call on a project, then the consortium leader would appraise it and send it across to the participating institution to sanction the loan. So that's the third aspect I would feel. There are many other things which the project appraisal exercise need to focus, but I believe the project appraisal is not receiving that professional approach that it ought to be, and possibly it has reduced to an exercise for sanction of the loan. I might be too critical, maybe I am generalizing the scenario in a far too critical manner. There are issues we see across how the promoters raise the equity in the beginning. The promoter would say we will raise through the private equity, we will raise some other arrangements. We as a lender do a PDC or PCC that they would have a satisfactory arrangement. They would come out with some agreement. There is a private equity player. There is no firmness in the private equity coming into. Private equity player putting a lot of PDCs, that is pre-disbursement conditions, so you never know whether that money would be flowing into the project or not. In the meantime, we relax the conditions. Project come to a certain stage, the lenders have put their neck into the project, private equity money is not coming in, and the project suffers from all sort of problems. So I believe that the appraisal exercise has to be done in a thorough professional manner. It has to be negotiated very well.